Okay.
Okay, we are recorded. Hi, everyone. I'm Liz Erdman. I'm the chair of the tree planting committee, and this is our December meeting to review our current applications for trees and ongoing activities related to tree planting activity, including the Beacon Street plans for the Beacon Street renovation project. At a future meeting in January and likely a second meeting, we will be holding tree hearings for once the plans for the Beacon Street train, once those plans have been provided by the MBTA, we will post them 2 weeks prior and have a hearing that we have. Our next meeting is scheduled for January the 5th. And so we are hoping that that meeting will include a hearing for the Sea Line renovation stations. Just wanted to share that up front if you're here to talk about that. Let me share the agenda for today.
Make sure you have the permissions to do so. Yes.
Okay.
All right, you should have permission. Sorry about that.
There we go. Okay. So happy holidays, everyone, and we will for whichever holiday you celebrate. Today's agenda is to start with our front yard tree applications and planting plans. We'll then follow with Hugh Madison's front yard tree planting Google map. At 5:25, we'll discuss the Sea Line accessibility project schedule. Then we'll discuss possible removal and replanting map for public communication regarding the Sea Line accessibility project. We'll then discuss the heritage tree program for the tree planting committee, the logistics of that. And then we'll follow it with fall planting and operations recap from staff and any questions and comments. We don't have the prior meetings on the agenda, but we have had time to review them, and we thank Hugh Madison for compiling them from the notes. And so if we can share any comments to Hugh through email. And I'm just going to admit Ann Coles to the meeting. Does anyone have any questions or comments before we start looking at the tree planting applications, the open ones? Pam, do you want me to start with, let you go a second since you're on the phone?
Either way, I'm ready to go whenever you'd like.
Okay, I can pop yours up then. So the first one we have is at the corner of Pleasant and Parkman Street. And this is a request for a red bud in the red circled area shown on the right-hand side photo. They requested an eastern red bud, and the note is that there are no overhead wires or below ground utilities near this proposed planting area. The closest below ground utilities are near the front stairs of the building. Utilities are to the right. And the photograph shows the utilities on Pleasant Street and the resident with standing at the planting site. So Pete and Jack, do you have any thoughts?
Jack and I popped by this site the other day. I think it's a good proposed site for a tree to be put there. I think a redbud would do well there.
Okay.
Great. Do you know roughly when this might get planted? Do you think spring is likely?
Yes, we'll see. It's all gonna be based on the availability from the nursery, but we're gonna shoot for this spring.
Okay.
So I noticed, I think their alternative tree is a cherry, if I'm not mistaken.
They just want pink flowers was their hope.
Okay,
So we'll note that the alternative is a cherry for that one. Okay, the next one is at 11 Gorham Street. And this request was for 2 trees. The first one is in the front yard on the left side of the house, shown with a star by the driveway. This is a very good site for a front yard tree. There are few street trees in this part of the street. It's wide and very sunny, so a tree will likely do very well there. They worked with an architect to draw up the plans, and they also got their request from the architect. So they have a very specific one, a Donald Wyman crabapple or any crabapple tree for that location. The next slide shows kind of the architectural rendering of this tree, which is by the driveway, and then a second one that is being requested, which we can talk a little bit more about because of the location that's on the side of the house. So any thoughts on this one?
I actually went out yesterday and did a site visit at this location. Starting with the second one that's on the side of the house, I don't think that's gonna meet the qualifications for the
Yeah,
yard tree
yeah,
program.
because of the sighting from the road.
And it's set back with like well beyond that 20-foot range as well.
Mhm.
And I think there's some underground utilities. I think that's where the utilities are running into as well, along that left side of the house. And
Yeah, right there. Yep.
there's also some neighboring trees on that side, which are on the neighbor's property, which are gonna shade out, give some shade. There's a big Norway spruce and a black cherry on that side of the property as well. And to speak, that's all I have on that left side of the tree, but as far as where they want to put the crab apple, I'm not sure how finicky you want to get about seeing the visibility from the street because of their forsythia hedge that's out in front,
Mhm.
because that's gonna totally block whatever tree goes in there, especially a crab apple. And its younger years.
Yeah. I was thinking that because the driveway is so wide, you can see it pretty well, not directly in front, but from the side. And if you look at the photograph, the house next door doesn't have any canopy right there. So, but I agree from the street, it's blocked. So, this is a good one for discussion of, how what completely visible from the street would include. And I defer to you.
I think, I mean, it's, if you're looking at it from the street, it's blocked. And you're only getting that small window from coming in off of Cypress Street and seeing the view from that way, and that's only a small kind of opening right there. So I'm not sure which direction we want to go on that.
Yeah,
Plus, they have all underground irrigation in that area as well. Not sure which way that irrigation is actually ran either.
Well,
it sounded like the irrigation's new and they could show, they could make sure that it's in between on that side. So I think it's really the visibility is the issue.
Right.
Let me make a comment. We put in one really nearby, like 2 or 3 doors up on Gorham Ave. And there was a small hedge there, but we put it in anyway. And hedges don't last forever, and so I'd vote to go ahead and put it in. In terms of the sprinkling system, just have them mark it somehow with little flags or something, and so and know where the line extends from. It probably extends from the house somewhere, and as long as it's obvious where it is, you can work around it.
And this is probably a site where it's, I mean, those hedges are all of 5 feet tall anyway, 4.5 feet tall. Those
Yeah,
Forsythia hedges,
yeah.
and they're gonna, right now they're maintained, but if you let Forsythia grow, it can get a little unruly.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was part of my thought process, is it kind of seems to be a matter of how they intend to maintain that forsythia, which isn't something we can prescribe necessarily, but if that forsythia is intended to be kept at that 4 or 5 foot height, the crabapple, even at planting, but definitely with time, will overtop those and be visible. It, I guess, is a matter of how much of it needs to be visible from the street, but it's flowers and canopy will be mostly. So I do defer to you, Pete, but I think there's a case to be made to get it in, as long as that driveway access is reasonable, which it looks like it should be. I
Yeah,
didn't review this.
Well, if we order, I mean, if you guys want to vote on whether or not we put it in or not, I mean, I'm fine with that, and it'll just have to be, if we go in favor of it, it'll just be a smaller tree, because of the likelihood of getting the equipment or the backhoe into that driveway, it's a little tight. So it'll definitely have to be
Yeah,
hand.
Would that species of crabapple, would that be suitable?
If it's available, it's nursery availability, but if not, we can get a crab apple for sure and put one in there. It just might not be the Donald Wyman.
yeah.
Right.
I think he was flexible in that way. So again, I think it's very open towards Cypress Street. And it's a great place to put a tree, I guess, is my thought. I think the Forsythia are gonna stay. They have young children, and they're I imagine they want to keep that hedge in the front, but it would make a positive impact on this street. If it was to flourish. And there's a dearth of street trees in this part of Gorham. So I think that's why I make the case for planting.
So
Right.
I'll move that we approve it.
But one quick question for you both before we vote, if that's okay, is
Yeah,
will we be able to see the tree from the street?
if
Not,
it's so.
it's not in its younger years. It's gonna take some time to get over that Forsythia hedge, and at best, it's gonna be, it's a crab apple. It's maybe gonna get 15 to 20 feet in height anyway.
Yeah,
So I just want to make sure we're being consistent, because we voted down a tree in the last meeting for Stetson Street because they had a fence, and it was the same rationale that eventually the tree would be visible, but it would have to grow up and over that fence. So it seems like I would advocate we either vote in favor of both or neither, just to be consistent.
Well,
I
on Stetson Street, Pam, we went out and visited that as well, and I spoke to the resident out there, and we've come to an agreement to move the tree into the front yard area for a small dogwood.
So that'll be on the Stetson side rather than the Dwight side.
Yes, it'll be in front of the home on Stetson.
Okay.
Yeah, Pam, I would suggest that a fence and a shrub are different. A fence is a structure. And a shrub is maybe permanent, may not be, but it certainly is more visible through a shrub than it would be through a fence.
Sure. So maybe we could just update the website to say that, like, must be visible by the street and not obstructed by anything human-made, like a fence or
Right.
something like that, just to clarify that. In that case, then I'd be in favor of this planting.
Sounds like it has support from the three planting
Yeah.
committee members.
Pam, I hear your point, and I guess I'm thinking it's partially visible from the street. That was my rationale, but I agree that we need to update the website to say that that we may allow with a shrub if there is, if it has some visibility from the street, so that we I think we're going to keep having these gray areas to consider.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
almost, I feel
Yeah.
like it's almost, it may be a site by site
Yeah.
basis.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
But
So my
But what you
next
said
one,
sounds good.
thank you. My next one is also very questionable, and it's 144 Jordan Street. And essentially, it has a retaining wall that the tree would need to be carried over. So wondered, again, Pete, what your thoughts on this one is?
Yeah, I went out and looked at that one as well. I mean, that's doable if we get something small enough where we can lift it up by hand, like a small potted tree of some sort or on a smaller scale size.
Mm-hmm.
The driveway isn't wide enough to really get a piece of equipment in there between the two sides of the walls.
Yeah, so they asked for a paper bark maple or a small cherry tree. Would those qualify?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, again, it's gonna come back to, I revert back to what the nursery has available when we put
Okay.
our spring order in.
Okay,
But I think getting it up on that wall is, we can make that work.
okay.
Pete, quick question. Would it be better if it were closer to the sidewalk? Well,
I think there's like a PJ, when I went out and looked at this, there's like a PJM rhododendron or something that's closer towards,
Yeah, Hugh, the spot we picked is actually a great planting spot. There's nothing there. It's deep for soil, and I think it's an old retaining wall that I wouldn't plant a tree too close to the front of that wall. It's literally like 18 inches high at it comes in lower. I don't know if the picture really shows that. And there are some overgrown rhododendrons, and I don't think the homeowner is wedded to keeping those, but the spot we picked a tree would take root better than close to the road.
Okay, couple quick questions. Is that, I assume that's within 20 feet of the street.
it's
Mhm.
about 18 feet in.
Okay.
Yeah, we measured.
And I have to say, the other side it looks like a great, much better spot. That's an empty,
So that's a really good point. And so the reason they didn't pick the other side is that the houses are so tight that they moved furniture in over that opening right there. So he said, we need to keep that clear because that's how they got like a piano in and sofas. The front stairs are, so narrow. So, but that's exactly what I suggested. And he was like, we need the walkway for getting big things in. So this is what we came up with. But so Pete, if you're amenable, I can tell him that.
Yeah,
All
I
right,
think
so
we'll
to
put it on
keep,
the list for this spring and see what the nursery has to offer.
fantastic. So I just made a quick list of what we have queued up for the spring and then we'll add Stetson. So we'll add Stetson, Gorham, Jordan, and Pleasant after today.
Okay,
Okay,
and then there were a couple from leftover from last month.
okay, which ones are those two?
Walcott, 61 Walcott, and 226 Grove. And I
Yep,
think those,
she just had those on the list, Hugh.
pardon me?
She just had those up on her list, Hugh, sharing her screen.
Oh, okay, okay,
Yeah,
good,
those are both there.
okay.
So we have those three, and then we have the three from today going forward.
Okay, now, another question, should we start promoting the program, maybe not in for the next month or so, but to get ready for next spring, do we want to take the chance that we'll get half a dozen people wanting these, or that I think that's sort of up to Jack and Pete about what your workload can handle.
Yeah, I think the more we can promote it, and if we have to push back and say if we get a ton of applicants and have to push back and say
Yeah.
it may be the fall.
Okay. Well, we can try.
I think getting the word out there is a good thing.
Yeah,
Sure.
I agree.
Okay, and the Green Space Alliance can put a little note, maybe in the like March or thereabouts, put a little thing in there, e-update.
and so maybe we can work on a flyer also that can just to post it on the Facebook group and, around town with
Huh?
QR code for applying and just quietly get the word out that way and see how the applications look this winter.
Liz, if you want staff to take a first pass at creating that, we can definitely do that and share it back with the committee for any edits if you'd like.
That would be fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
We could also write something up in Brookline News, a little op-ed or letter to the editor or something.
Yep. All good ways.
Definitely. These, as you guys all know, these plantings just typically take a little bit longer to install because there's obstacles we're working around, retaining walls and other, whatever the case may be, site by site. So they take a little bit longer to install.
Yep. Sure.
Okay. So let's, Hugh, could you share your Google map for the tree planting
Sure.
site?
Well, I guess you have to do something to let me in, right? Oh, I can share it now,
You should
right?
have permission. Yep.
Hang on. Okay, let me see where it is.
No, I love these discussions of how to promote this program because we have overall goals of trying to expand it. I don't think enough people know about it for how cool it is. So thanks,
Okay.
everyone.
Okay, this is actually this is a Google map based on a spreadsheet, just a straight spreadsheet. In this case, I know, Jack, you came up with 8 locations, something like that. I came up with about 60 over time. You're looking at my notes, and I know there are more, but I'm just not remembering them. But there are 2 symbols. So this is available to anyone who has the link to a Google map. And what's nice about this is somebody can say, "Oh, I'd like to have a red button." You say, "Well, look here and here and here," and you can go and look at them, and look at them. This one's 3 years old or whatever. Very informative. And as you can see, the kinds of information we can keep are the date the date planted, the species, the name of the owner. I would tend to take out the name of the owner because those change over time. But the address certainly doesn't change. And in some cases, you can add a, I think maybe, no, I don't. You can add a photo. I got some down here. I'm going to move the map. And I know that on Walnut Street, here's a beautiful little photo of a tupelo. That was planted a couple of years ago. And, you know, I always tell people, well, it has gorgeous foliage and they can go out and look at it themselves. That's a 220 walnut. So, but that's the kind of functionality this has. It's pretty easy to maintain. I would say that we put it up on a spreadsheet, on a Google spreadsheet, and make it, and
Yeah.
it could be maintained by whoever or just by me or whatever. But it doesn't involve GIS. It's not work for the town, so to speak, and it makes it very accessible to anyone who wants to look at it.
So Hugh, I had sent you some updates, some more locations. I just realized I sent it to your Gmail, not your AOL. So
Yeah, well, then I
forwarded-
didn't see it.
yeah, I forwarded it just now. So
Okay, great.
there's a few more and a couple of changes in that.
Sure, good, okay. Okay. So so I guess I'm through with sharing, I guess. Am I?
Well,
Stop
this
share.
is
There we go.
fantastic. Thank you for
Okay.
putting
Any
it
other-
together.
Yeah, any other questions? And just another, this relates to a couple of other items. One is on Beacon Street. If we get locations of removals or plantings or whatever the T is planting, we can add those to a different map, or I don't care, for the same map. And we can also show the front yard trees in the Arboretum. The species, people can go to the Arboretum and look at them too. And that's another version of the same idea. So this has a lot of flexibility and it's easy to handle. So just keep it in mind. Okay, I'll stop sharing now then.
Thank you for pulling that together here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. So, yeah, go ahead, Liz.
Well, I think the next is the Sea Line accessibility schedule and the upcoming meetings and the letters that we've received so far.
Yes, so I can talk a bit about all of that. So, as you all know, so if anyone doesn't know me, I'm Jack Schleifer. I'm the tree warden, urban forestry manager. Been at a few of these, but still enjoying getting to know everyone. So hello. And I've been working closely on the MBTA Sea Line accessibility upgrade project with the MBTA team, which has been a already long process of trying to make sure that we have as many tree protections and tree mitigation efforts and tree preservation intentions as possible as these stations are upgraded from Hawes Street all the way down to Dean Road. So it's pretty much the full Sea Line. As people may know, there have already been hearings held for 2 of those stations. That was for Tappan and Englewood, but the MBTA team still needs to come through the process of talking to the tree planting committee and hosting a public hearing for the remaining stations if and where there will be any tree removals. And that's because these trees are protected under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 87. So there's this process that they need to go through in order for any of them to be removed, which I'm grateful for because it means we get more insight into what's going on and more oversight over how. So these trees, just people might know this, but as part of that process, if any trees are to be removed, there needs to be a posting put on them 14 days prior. And that's a physical posting on the tree. And then there also needs to be a posting put in the local news or media source as well. So we had hopes originally in coordinating with the MBTA team that they would use this December 10th meeting as one of their hearings, but they weren't able to have their designs far enough advanced to post 2 weeks prior and to kind of make this deadline. So that is all to say that they are now targeting a January date that we're hoping would be January 5th, as Liz said earlier. I wonder if that's liable to change just because that's been a bit of a pattern in that they have, had to kick the can a little bit because they're still pushing their designs along to a point where they're codified enough to bring them forwards to the town. But all to say that this is not the hearing for the MBTA trees. We're happy to try to discuss some of that, but overall, mostly just wanted to let people know that we will be working with their team to schedule a special hearing with the tree planting committee in January. And then that will be the time at which we'll really focus on all of those designs. Despite that, we've still gotten a few letters from community members expressing their thoughts and concerns about this project. So I can read those briefly into the public record, but I think they're also well suited for those future hearings, so we can keep them in our pockets for then because they're important. And I believe some of those folks might be on here as well, so happy to let you all represent yourselves. But the first is from Cynthia Grossman, and I'll read it quickly. She said, "Dear Brookline representatives, tree planting committee, and transportation board members, I'm a long-term, almost 30-year resident of Brookline, living at 1500 Beacon Street, and I'm very concerned and troubled about the MBTA plans to remove the beautiful tree canopy between the Brandon Hall and Fairbanks T stations. Having attended one of the tree planting committee meetings, I understand and appreciate the MBTA efforts to work with the town on this issue and their plans to replant trees, but the mature trees are not only a historic and unique part of this section of Beacon Street, but they also provide a plethora of environmental and health benefits. I absolutely support the need for updating the accessibility of the T stations, but urge you to make preserving those trees a top priority, not a secondary concern." And that is what we have from Cynthia. So just to respond to that, I want to say that I appreciate it. It certainly aligns with how we feel over here on the town's end. So we've been working with the MBTA to really kind of cajole and refine those station designs along the whole sea line, but especially for that Brandon Hall to Fairbanks stretch that has that kind of forested stretch along the hillside that is pretty fantastic and provides a lot of benefits. So we are waiting for more and more information from the MBTA team, but so far it seems like we already have some small changes in the design that are not certain, but working with them to shorten platforms, reduce ramp impact on the hillside. So more to come on that, and I would rather the MBTA team be presenting their designs down the road ultimately than myself, but very heard and received from Cynthia there. And then the second is from Phoebe Hyde, and it was addressed to Phil, but it says, "I love your work, but my soul died a little yesterday when I saw the X's on the trees between the Fairbanks and Brandon Hall stops on the sea." And to the Brookline Tree Committee, this stop consolidation was supposed to save trees. Why can't we scrap the less used stop and upgrade accessibility at the other instead of cutting our urban forest? This new stop is egregious and expensive. Upgrading that would never be allowed if historic buildings were involved. And then it says, "Wait, forget that. Right around the corner, Brookline just raised an old school that could have been thoughtfully modernized. Kids watched from their new classrooms in horror as streets were felled and historic trees were felled and chipped. Maybe they could come watch again. I've seen the magic the T design and planting team can work. You built a subway through the middle of Brookline High School, so I'm completely sure we can improve green sea line service and accessibility while preserving the character and ecosystem of the Beacon Street Historic Corridor. Please reconsider. I'd hate to embarrass my teenage children by chaining myself to a tree on cutting day. Sincerely and with great hopes for your creativity and wisdom, Phoebe Hyde." So I want to just respond to the very first part of that, which talks about the X's on the trees between Brandon Hall and Fairbanks. That is something that I've been hearing about a lot from community members, and those X's on trees, for the record, do not indicate that those trees are necessarily going to be removed. They were paint that the surveyors put on the trees when they were doing a tree inventory of this whole stretch. So that has been much to my chagrin and frustration because they put paint on all of these trees that are public resources. But those X's are alarming, but they don't say that the trees are going to be removed. There are also X's and paint on some of the light poles and some of the RCS poles and everything, and those aren't all going to be removed either. So I just wanted to clarify that and also say that we appreciate that letter, Phoebe. So that's all I really had on that. Thank you all for letting me read both of those into the record. And again, there's a lot more to come on this project overall, and it will be the focus of upcoming meetings with the tree planting committee.
Jack, this is Sonny Zeke. I'm not part of the committee, just attending tonight. The reason I'm attending is specifically because of the Green Line thing, the topic you just covered.
Yeah.
I really love the 2 letters you read. I want to get involved somehow. And so I wonder if you might give me some advice of how I might, what I might do to help advocate in favor of what you heard in those 2 letters.
Yeah, well, thank you. I think being here is a good start. I think that, so there is a window for public comment and appeals associated with any of the tree planting committee meetings or the tree hearings. So when that hearing happens, there'll be the postings 2 weeks ahead, as I mentioned, and in that is a good window to write in any letters. But also, I think, the town continues to really work with the MBTA on this one and try to do so collaboratively because we're excited by the prospect of making these stations accessible. It's important, it's a priority. So I hope I'm not out of line in saying that. I think also reaching out to the MBTA staff and administration and team is probably a good way to go. I am a believer personally that the more voices we can have together, the stronger we all are. So there are, MBTA administrative folks who you could reach out to, but also feel free to send me a message separately if there are certain things you want to communicate. And I can try to make sure that those are said in our meetings and understood by our staff here.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I definitely will write to you. Do you have any contact at the MBTA that you might suggest to be productive that I write to or that I send a letter to?
I don't know that off the top of my head, so I would need to verify.
Great. And also, certainly, after there's a presentation by the MBTA, there's an opportunity then for people to comment. I will certainly do that. But in advance of that kind of unveiling, is there anything you might suggest I do to kind of get up to better speed so I can be better prepared for that presentation that they might give?
Yeah, so it's a good question. There are public records from their past presentations, and those could be good places to look. They presented for their other stations. You can kind of see the precedent to the tree planting committee at our last meeting, and you can find that online and also at the select board and the transportation board. So if you dig through each of those records, I think all of those meetings are recorded, so you can see their past presentations and kind of how those have shaken out. That'd probably be helpful. And in some of those, should include the full Sea Line plans that they had at that time, at least for some of the past transportation board meetings. So you can look at those. Again, things continue to change and upgrade and iterate as their designs move along and improve. But that's my first thought, Sonny.
Great, very helpful. Thank you so much.
Go ahead. I also see Kara's hand. Okay.
Hi there. Sorry I can't have my camera on. Hi. I actually had the same question about who to reach out to at the MBTA, and I can just share my experience, Sonny, that I went originally looking on the MBTA site, and all I could really find was a sort of general comments area. So you would choose to email them, and there's a drop-down menu, and I can't remember what the drop-down menu was, but that's the only place that I could find to register any direct form of comment. So there's just that anyway. And then related, I mean, if anyone else has any direct contact, that'd be great to know. But my question was also just related to publicity, and that was, do we know what newspaper of record you mentioned that the MBTA has to post in? Do we know what that is?
Good question. It's usually in the Herald, is my understanding, but anyone can correct me if I'm mistaken.
That's correct, Jack.
I wonder why it's that. Thanks.
Can I make a little comment based on my number of years of experience? the T isn't all that responsive. You send an email to a generic customer service request, and you're probably not going to get a response. I think your better chance of success is to support the, work with the Brookline website, which will have a lot more detail, and attend the meetings and learn about the history, and don't expect a lot of personal attention from the T. Now, that's not to say they don't mean well and all that, but I'm just saying their focus is a lot broader than ours, and ours is aimed directly at the Beacon Street project, so we can deal with detail where they aren't likely to.
Jack, this is Evelyn Murphy. I'm sorry, I can't figure out how to raise my hand. Not that
Hi, Evelyn.
sophisticated on Zooms. Let me just add to this, because at one stage, I contacted our state senator, Senator Cream, and she convened a meeting of some of the MBTA higher ups, one in the commission, in Phil Eng's office, and several who were in the project. Sonny, I will find the name of the person who was in Eng's office for you, for Kara, for Cindy, whoever else wants it. But I think that's the place. I watched after that meeting, and Senator Cream was saying, all we want the T to do is know that we're watching them. She is a very significant figure in the state Senate. And that seemed to reverberate in some ways. They were perfectly nice, said all the right things about wanting to preserve trees. But the plain fact is, I think in this person, we may have the name and start to swamp him with our concerns, so that the message comes back down to the team that you're dealing with, Jack, from some of us outsiders.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you, Evelyn, for the inroads you have and understand. So appreciate that.
Jack, in terms of connecting us, I'll write to you. We can find you by email, and I'll have my name. And feel free to forward that to Evelyn or to anyone else, so that we can kind of all be in communication with each other. She may identify this person she just said, but then how would she know how to communicate that to me? So if you connected the dots, we don't have a chat thing here, so I can't type my email in the chat. I'd be happy to.
We don't. I apologize for that.
That's okay. Yeah, it's all right.
But
Anyway,
yes,
yeah,
that
you can
works.
connect us.
That makes sense to me. Great. Well, and I appreciate everyone here, and in the spirit of keeping us on track or close to it, the next thing on the agenda is also MBTA related, but I'm going to be quite brief about it. It's discussion of possible MBTA removal and replanting map for public communication. And this was an idea that Hugh and others had raised to make sure that we have kind of a consolidated space to share this information. I think that's a great idea and valuable. My instinct and my reaction is that I want as much of that to come from the MBTA as possible. I mean, I think there's a place and an importance of us doing this work too, and the community doing the work. But I'm hesitant to create that before we have finalized designs from the MBTA. So I think we're in a little bit of a holding pattern right now, waiting for a next stage of design, so we know what they're going to be proposing at the future hearings. And then with those, we can hopefully start to organize a bit more, if that makes sense to folks. Great. Well, I know this project's important to many, myself included, but so are our heritage trees. So the next thing on the agenda is discuss heritage tree program and logistics of what we can include in the program. So Liz, I can throw it back to you if you have
Sure,
anything.
and I'll be brief. And I just wanted to get this on the agenda because which keeps getting pushed back. We've had so many pressing issues. So the urban forestry climate resiliency plan, one of the a couple of the areas that they pointed out that we could work on as a community are to encourage residents to plant trees on their personal properties, like find ways to promote residents planting trees. And they also suggested that we develop develop a way and I'll read how they say it, to document and celebrate existing heritage trees. So they defined a heritage tree as one with diameter greater than 32 inches or with historical significance. So the previous conservation assistant, Katie Weatherseed, ran with this a couple of years ago, and she started a forum, and she asked residents to document heritage trees in their neighborhood, and got great feedback and a mixture of private and public and park trees, all kind of brought together by community members. It seems like it was a drop in the bucket of what what is in town and what the effort to document this. So I wanted to get out there, like, what would be a logical next step to kind of establish a way to document and celebrate heritage trees. Katie found there's it's something that you'd want to channel for the heritage trees so that it didn't blossom into a project that's even bigger. And so what I also wanted to throw out there was, which is more important, just encouraging the planting of any tree or focusing on these heritage trees and getting tabs on them going forward. So.
Well, okay, let me throw in a couple of thoughts. With this new tree protection bylaw, I believe we're supposed to be tracking not only removals, but new plantings. So that would be on, obviously, we know the plantings on public land, and that would, if we record it, that would be available to track the plantings on private land. So we've got public and private plantings covered.
Is that every planting, Hugh? Or just when you're removing a tree?
No, when they're removing a tree, if they're gonna plant something to replace it,
Okay.
so obviously they just plant one brand new. Well,
Right.
we don't know about that.
Right. Okay.
And I don't know if we want to know about it, because then that becomes very, that becomes a lot of work. And I mean, it's nice to know, but maybe we'd be better off. I don't know if you know about, there's a program, Jack might know about this one. There's a program, some software online called iTree. And it's you can it's publicly available, it's open source. I've downloaded it, and it's been around a few years, and it's gotten quite robust. One of the techniques you can use, and I've thought this would be one thing to do every year. You can take the outline of Brookline and tell it you want to get an idea of the canopy, and let's say you want to test 1,000 points, let's say, which would give you a pretty good picture of what the canopy is. And what it does is it analyzes the photo, whether it's pavement or tree or grass or whatever, and you can get an idea of the canopy. So that would take a little work, not a ton of work, but some dedicated work to understand it and just do that as a matter of practice. And that would be a way of tracking your progress each year in terms of canopy. Right now, what do we have? Some 47% canopy, something like that. I don't know, but they came up with a number, and it's probably in that sustainability report. And every year, if we just run this program at the end of each year, we have to do it in the summer, obviously, when there is a canopy, but just run it June 30th every year. And in theory, you can track, whether you get to 48 or 49% or whatever. And that would be the way
Yeah.
in a streamlined way of getting an idea and not having it go in after every tree, because we're never gonna get every tree.
Right.
So that would be a broader test. The other, and of course, we're tracking the removals and those plantings, and that's a more detailed analysis. And that's going to be an issue because, somebody takes down a tree and is supposed to plant 3 trees in its place. Well, you got to go out and look at it and make sure they last a couple of years and so forth. So there's a fair amount of legwork involved in that, and that could be done through a spreadsheet, another Google spreadsheet or something. But it is more work, and I don't know if it's really
Thank you. Yeah, I see
valuable.
Alexandra has your hand up also.
Sure. Thank you, Liz. Good evening, Alexandra Vecchio, Director of Sustainability. I worked with Katie right when I started with the town on that Heritage Tree Project. And so I just wanted to note that one of the challenges we had when we did that last time was really around with IT and the capabilities of what we could host on our town webpage and how to collect that information. And ultimately, we were able to collect info, I think, about on 90 or so trees, but we had a lot of feedback from the community that it wasn't a user-friendly platform, it wasn't easy to navigate, and it was not going well. And so people were reluctant to participate for part of that reason. So to your question, Liz, of kind of immediate steps, I do think that the first piece of this is figuring out, before we go too far down any one path, figuring out what is feasible with our IT department that can work within our existing web platform, because I would assume that we would want to make sure that whatever is developed is based on the brooklinema.gov website. So just want to toss that out there. And this is something that Jack and Mealy and I have talked a little bit about, and staff are happy to have some of those preliminary conversations with IT, but I do think that's important just to set a realistic scope on what can be used.
Thank you. That's Katie did mention that it had started with a fanfare and then kind of spiraled into really difficult wrangling of and people also, like, who's measuring on whose property, like so some of even the boundary issues going from private to public and how that's done came out. So I do think this is no small undertaking, and just wanted to get thinking about it. Sean Jones, I see you have your hand up.
Thank you. I'm Sean Lynn Jones, president of the Brookline Green Space Alliance. I just wanted to note that there are 2 fairly prominent models of posting heritage trees or similar trees on websites, and they're different. Right here in Boston, there's an organization called Speak for the Trees, which is entirely non-governmental. And they have a program for nominating what they call big old trees. I think that's the highly technical scientific term here for these. And this is not governmental. It's entirely a public process. They have a very nice website where they list these trees, and they point out that it doesn't mean they get any special presentation. New York City has a public program, and I don't know if you've looked at their website. It doesn't look like it would be too hard to do something like it if we did it here. They have the Great Trees program that the parks there in New York City Department of Parks and Recreation has. And that is, again, open to public nomination, but they're posted by the city itself. And they go both on historic significance, botanical significance, and cultural significance. They have a map similar to the maps we have of our trees, and a long list of the various trees in this category with details. And they invite people to nominate their favorite trees and to become a steward for those trees too. So, I mean, those are 2 obvious models. And I know we make everything more complicated in Brookline, and we have to cope with our website and all of its idiosyncrasies. But it seems like that it wouldn't be rocket science to go one way or the other here. And I don't know if the Green Space Alliance could do the same thing that the Big Old Trees program in Boston has done. I don't think it would be impossible, but it might be better if it were on the town's website, like in New York. But I'd be happy to share those links if you don't have them already. It's the New York City Parks Department, and then just Big Old Trees Boston. They're good examples.
Those are terrific, Sean. Thank you. I'm just going to let Jack speak because we're running low on time, and just want to get our last bit of the meeting in.
Yeah, just want to say super quickly that we do have our GIS data system for the town trees for street trees, and we're doing a cool undertaking of having all of our parks, or almost all of our parks, inventoried. So this will give us a really awesome data set to work from, in which we can organize the trees by size, see where all the big ones are, and that can get us going for the public trees. Adding in private trees is a messy or a different ball of yarn, but I just wanted to throw that in there.
Okay, thank you. I think this is an ongoing brainstorm. I appreciate all these thoughts so far, and to be continued on where we go. So I'm going to send it back to you, Jack, though, so we can wrap up the planning.
Yeah, I think that's great. The next thing we had on our agenda can be really quick, and it's just a fall planting recap from staff. So Pete, if you want to do a lightning round.
Sure. So we wrapped up our fall plantings this year. We've gotten approximately 120 trees in the ground for fall planting, which was a good season. We carried over some of the front yard tree plantings that we weren't able to get to this year for the spring of next year. So we're going to go forward and have a good spring planting this year.
Fantastic. Thank you for getting 120 trees in the ground. Much appreciated.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks to Pete. Cool. So yeah, we have a few seconds for any questions and comments. I can stay on a minute longer too, but that's most of what we had for our agenda today, this evening.
Thank you very much. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Liz, before we adjourn, I just wanted to note that, typically we review the meeting minutes of the meeting, as part of the TPC, and approve the meeting minutes. So just wanted to bring that up because that was not a part of the agenda, and making sure that someone was taking the notes for the last meeting. And if we don't do it today, it's fine. We can, approve it during the next meeting. Just wanted to make sure that was on the committee's radar.
Oh, thank you. That's a good point. And I think we will make sure that it's the first item on our future agendas.
We did have that on the agenda. Sorry to interrupt, but we pulled them together just a bit late to post it publicly, so we figured we'd do a few batches in our next meeting, but we'll be on it. And thanks to Hugh for doing that for the last one.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you, Hugh.
Yeah. So,
Welcome. Well, let me ask this. What's the process for recording this meeting?
It's recorded. It'll be uploaded to the tree planting webpage. I can share that.
Okay, let me know if you want help.
Yes, sir.
All right. And on that note, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
I'll second.
Fantastic. Thank you, everyone. Have a happy holiday, and we look forward to more trees in 2026.
Thank
Happy
you, you
holidays.
too.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you.